evening all. Today we will see about inheritance in Java. Now why there is a need of inheritance? First of all, understand suppose there are two classes. There is one class already defined, that is employee, having data members as name, birth date and salary. Now we already have defined employee class means we have declared the variables that we are going to need like name, birth date, salary, and we have written the methods that we are going to use for reading or displaying the data of employee class. Now suppose I want to write a new class that is manager class having fields as name, birth date, salary and department. Now if we can see manager is also an employee of the organization having the similar fields of name, birth date, and salary. So there is no need of writing the name, birth date, salary, and all the functions to read and display that data again in the manager class. That will, if we write that again, that will increase the code line, the number of variables, and the compilation time will be more and the complexity will be more. If that functionality is already defined in employee class, isn't it possible that we can use that functionality in another class directly? Yes, that can be done, but we need the object of class every time when we want to access the functionality of class outside the class. Is there any solution that we can access the properties of one class into another class without using object of a class? So it is possible only when we can establish a relationship between the classes using inheritance. So, how this inheritance making useful in the program implementation? It is using the feature of reusability. See, in the employee class, we already have name, birth date, salary. So for manager again there is no need to declare these variables, read and display that variables again and again. If it is already defined in employee class, we can reuse these variable and functions of employee class in manager class. Reusability of variable and function can be done in another class. So, the class whose functionality we want to access is known as a base class or superclass or parent class, and the class in which we want to access the functionality of above class is known as a derived class, subclass, or child class. And this is nothing but the inheritance. Inheritance is the process of deriving a new class from the old class. Like here, we are deriving a manager class from the already defined employee class. We can access the properties of employee class by using the object of manager class. So, in inheritance, there is no need to create object of base class. If there is a relation or inheritance between these classes, the bottom level or derived class object can be used to access the variable and function of base class. So generally in inheritance we don't create object of base class. We can create object that won't give any error but that will not make any sense of using inheritance. Now, we will see how we can inherit a class, how we can derive a new class or child class. So syntax is, while writing a base class, we can simply define it as regular way: class, superclass or base class name, variables and methods of this base class, closing bracket of class. But while writing derived class or child class or subclass, there is a change while defining a class. That is, write class, subclass name, extends name of the base class and its own functionality like variable and method and closing of the bracket. We will see the types of inheritance. As per the hierarchy or as per the whose functionality is being accessed in which class, depending on the relationship between number of classes, there are different types of inheritance in Java: single, multi-level, hierarchical, multiple and hybrid. Now we will see how this single inheritance means. Single inheritance means when a one class is derived from one base class. Such type of inheritance is known as a single inheritance. One base class and only one derived class. Now we will see how we can implement the program of single inheritance. Here is the problem definition. The arrow which is coming from student class, so we can say student is the base class, and where the arrow is going to library class, it means the library is derived class. Because if you can observe here, the library or the library number or member number gets assigned to the student whose roll number and name is known. So for assigning member number, we should know the roll number and name of the student. So we will not write or declare this variable again in the library. We will not read this roll number and name again in the library class. We can access that functionality of student class directly into the library class without object. Let's see how we can write this code. So for writing this code, we have to import java.io.star class student, declare the variable int roll number. For name we will write string n. For reading input from user, we will create object of data input string class, and in bracket we have to mention system.in. Now all the variables are declared. Now we will write the functionality of student class to read this roll number and name variable and display it. So I am taking one method as void get. We will write throws exception because we are going to read it from the user. So we will give a message to user that system.out.println in bracket enter roll number and name, enter roll number and name. So we will read roll number by converting it into integer, whichever is read by using readline function. We will assign name to n variable which is read from the readline function, where L is capital. Now we have written the functionality of get class. Now we will write one function, show function, to display the values of roll number and name. Roll number is equal to plus roll number, name is equal to plus n. Done. So show function close, and here close the student class. Now base class is over. Now we have to write the library class. So we will write it like class library extends is a keyword to derive a class, and in front of that give the name of the base class. So it means library class is extended or derived or inherited from the student base class. So it means all the variables and methods of student class which are not private are accessible in the library class without object. So we can access the all the variable and function of student class into library class directly without object. So we are defining the library class. In library class, now we will not read roll number and name again, and we will not display the roll number and name again because it is already written in the student class. We can make use of these functions in the library class. No need to write that code again and again. We will just add this functionality of reading library number from user, and we will display it in the library. So I am writing one function library number with throws exception. In that we will give message enter library number. We have to declare one variable as int ln. We will read that ln is equal to integer dot parse int in bracket d dot read line. Now the display function is done. Sorry, read function is done. Now we will write one function to display the library number of student. So suppose here I am writing void disp where library number is equal to plus ln done disk close class close. Now apart from diagram we will have one more class, and here we will write main function. This is my simple suggestion कि as per diagram of inheritance write all the classes as per the given boxes. If there are two boxes of class, write two classes, read the members given in the brackets, display the value of these members by using functions, and apart from these classes take one class where we can write the function. Just for simplicity to avoid the confusions, here again we have to write throws exception. Now we have seen the meaning of inheritance as that we can access the properties of one class using object of another class. As I said, so that's why there is no need to create object of base class. We can access the properties of base class by using object of derived class. So inheritance always create object of derived class only. So we will create the object of library class, and by using this L object we will call the functions of student class. Now we have written the get and show function in the student class and LNO and disk function in library class. Now first of all, by using this library object we will call the get function which will read the roll number and name, and then we will call LNO function to read the library number. Then we will call the show function to display the roll number and name. Then we will finally call the disk function to display the library number. So all the methods of base class as well as derived class means the methods of student class and the methods of library class. Both are called using object of library class only because the library class object has all the rights to access the members of base class. Now we will save the program with si name because the main function is available in si.java. We have to save the file under Java folder. So we are saving si.java. Sorry, si.java. We have to compile the code to check for errors. There seems no error. Now run the code. It is asking for enter roll number and name. Suppose roll number is this, name is ABC. It has asked for the library number. Suppose library number is this, and now all the details are displayed. So we have seen this single inheritance where the functionality of this student class is accessed by using object of library class. So means we can access the variable and function of one class using object of another class like we have accessed here by using L object. This is nothing but the inheritance. Now, suppose without inheritance, what would have been done? We have to treat this library class as a single one, and for before assigning library number, what we have to done, what we have to write, enter roll number, enter name, and then enter library number. But it was already written in the student class, so we have not read that again, or we have accessed that functionality just by name over here without writing code again. We have reused the code of base class. So this is example of single inheritance. Moving on, next type of inheritance is multi-level inheritance. Multiple levels, layers. So when a class is derived from already derived class, such type of inheritance is known as a multi-level inheritance. Now here if you can see, C is derived from B, whereas B is already derived class from A. So all the members of A class will be accessible in the B class directly, and all the members of B class are accessible in the class C directly. So for C, B is the base class, but for A, B is the derived class. So we will see how we can implement the multi-level inheritance. We will see one problem definition. We have a student class with roll number, name, marks 1, marks 2. We have another class as the average where we have to calculate the average of marks 1 and marks 2. And according to average, we have to display the grade of the student. So these are the two functionality that are added later on. So it means कि at initial stage we already had written a student class with roll number, name, marks 1, marks 2. But later on we wanted to calculate the average. So we are not changing this class. We are just adding a new functionality by adding one more class, and with the help of inheritance we are accessing this functionality here. Same later on we thought we have to calculate the grade. So we have added that functionality without modifying the existing code. Rather, we are reusing the existing code. So let's see how we can implement this multi-level inheritance. So first of all, we have to write the student class with roll number, name, marks 1, marks 2. Then average is the derived of student. Then from average, we have to derive a result class. We will code this. Now, here we already have a student class with the roll number, name. Here I am adding M1 and M2 for marks. Here we have to read marks 1 and marks 2 after roll number and name. So I am giving message as enter marks 1 and marks 2. So we have to read that in M1 and M2. So M1 and M2. So we are done with the get function. Okay. Now in the display we will write additional line of code to display the marks 1 and marks 2. Marks 1 is in M1, marks 2 is in M2. So we have written a student class with the given variable, and we have written a get function to read and show function to display. Now we have to write this average class. As arrow is coming from student class to average, so we have to write like here we will write a code class average extends because it is derived from student class. So here what we need to calculate the average. Average of what? Marks 1 and marks 2. Now we will write one function here as a calculate where we are displaying the average directly. So average is equal to plus m1 plus m2 divided by 2. So this is what I have tried to combine the statements. Let's see what we get over here. This is the inner bracket that we are completing, or you can do a calculation like int a is equal to m1 plus m2 divided by 2, and and display a, that is average here. Now cal function closing bracket of average class done. So now we are done with the average class. Again, arrow is coming from average class to result class, so we have to write result class now. So class result, okay, extends derived from where? Average class. So we have written avg. Now we have to calculate the grade or display the grade according to the calculated average. So for a grade, if you want to write as code for it, so we will write a g function for the grade, where suppose we are giving condition if the average is greater than or equal to 50, then suppose we are saying that excellent, and we will make it reverse. If not, we will say poor. You can implement as you want. Okay, so g function is over, class function is over. So as I have given you the key hint, as per the number of boxes of class, write number of classes. So for student box, we have written student class with variable and read and write function done. For the average class, we have done the calculation because there is no need to read average. We have to calculate it from M1 and M2. For result class, we have to display a message like whether it is excellent, poor, distinction, first class, second class, pass, or fail. You can implement the way you want. Now, Here there may be problem because int a is declared in the cal function, so it will become local, so it won't be accessible over here. So we have to declare a variable inside the class. Now we will write one more class other than this diagram, where we can write public static void main in bracket string ar array. We have to write throws exception, where e is capital. Now, as per this diagram, we have to create object of only derived class. No need of creating object of base classes or upper classes. So for this diagram, result is the derived class. So we will create object of result. R is equal to new result. Now we will just call the function in a sequence. So first of all, we have to call the get function to read roll number, name, marks. Then we have to call the cal function, show function, then cal function, then g function. Let's see. R dot get, R dot show to display the details, R dot cal to calculate the average, R dot g to display the grade. Closing of main, closing of class, save the code. Now let's compile the code and see the output. Enter roll number, name, enter marks, suppose 34, 56. See, 34, 56, average is 62, and it is greater than 50. That's why it is showing the grade as excellent. So this is how we have implemented the multi-level inheritance. Moving on, next we have hierarchical inheritance. Hierarchical means tree structure. When we have derived more classes from a single base class, then such type of inheritance is known as a hierarchical inheritance. Let's see how to code it. Suppose we have the same code of student roll number name, and we have to add two functionality at parallel way. Like library is another functionality where it is not making any sense with the average, and same vice versa. So there is no relationship between library and average. So here the functionality of student class can be accessed into library class and in average class also. But we cannot access the functionality of library class into average class, or we cannot access the functionality of average class into library because there is no inheritance in between of these two classes. And here we have to create object of both the classes because both are derived. So library function can be called using library object, and average function can be called using average class object. Library object cannot be used to call average class function. So let's see how we can code this. Base class is student. Suppose we have roll number, name, etc. And we will just comment these lines so that it will not execute. No need of marks, roll number, name is sufficient. Now here we have to write average class. Okay, average class is derived from student class. We have to calculate the average. Okay, so we will keep this because we have not given the variables for average. So we will keep this to calculate the average, or there is one chance you can read the average from user. No problem at all. We will keep this. Now we have to add this library class. So class library extends, and it is derived from student class only. And here we have to read and display the library number. So we will write function to read library number and to display it. So I am reading void lno, where I want to give a message to user as enter roll number, enter library number, and lno is equal to integer dot parse in bracket t dot read line. Close this function. Now we want to display the library number, so we will have this function which will display the library number is equal to plus l n o ln ln, and we will declare ln variable inside the class. Closing of class. Let's see now which function we need to call. Roll number and name, then for member, and then for average. Now for roll number name we have get function, then we have to call show, then we have to call cal, get show cal, and then lno and disp. So now as per diagram, there are two derived classes, so we have to create object of library. So library L is equal to new library. We have another derived class, that is average. O is equal to new average. Now the student class function, which are get and show, can be called using any of the object L or A. So suppose I write L dot get, it will work. L dot show, it will call the function. Now for reading library number, we have to use library object only. So in library we have function lno and disp that can be called using object of library class only. So lno and disp function we will call with l dot lno, l dot disp. Now average function have to be called using average class object only. So in average class we have cal function, and we have to use object of avg class, that is o. So o dot cal. Save the code. There is there are various ways of implementation of inheritance. You have to just follow the arrows. Now we have written get and show function in the student class. Instead of calling that function in main using object of any of the derived class, we can call the function of base class in the derived class function directly. Now suppose if I am calling this get and show function of student class in average class directly, so we have to call that in the function. So I can first call the get function, then show function, and we can simply calculate average over here, like AV is equal to M1 plus M2 divided by 2, and we can do the calculation. Now what we are remained with, we have to just call the average class cal function and the libraries lno and display function. Of course, the cal function has to be called from average class object only, and these two functions should be called using library class object only. So we will call first ob.cal function and then L dot lno function, then L dot display function. Let's see whether it gets executed or not. Enter roll number, name, marks of 1, marks 2, and we have received roll number, name, marks 1, marks 2, average, and library number is this. So, this is how we have implemented the hierarchical inheritance. Moving on, we will see about. So, we have seen in today's session that what is the need of inheritance. If we want to add a new functionality, new feature to an existing class, there is no need to modify the complete class. We can reuse the already written code in another class without object, that is known as an inheritance. It is the process of deriving a new class from the existing class. There are different types of inheritance: single, multi level, hierarchical, multiple, and hybrid inheritance. In this session, we have seen how to implement inheritance and how to inherit a class, how to implement single inheritance, multi level inheritance, and hierarchical inheritance. I hope you are clear with the basic concepts of inheritance. Thank you. See you in the next session.